What's up? What's up? It's on. I can hear it.
It is on though. Yeah. Bismillah. You know it's not working?
Yeah, I heard about it. I didn't realize it was this one. This is the basement stuff, buddy.
Yeah, but it doesn't work. Use it.
But
Testing, testing.
I'm hearing it. Oh, like you can see everything, like you can hear everything. By the way, weird question to ask. Would you be interested in milk?
Assalamu alaikum. I would ask all of you to take seats, and I would request sisters they can come down we have a presentation. It'll be easier for you to watch the presentation from down here. So we have a separation set up downstairs, so please make your way down. We're going to start soon, and after that, inshallah, we'll proceed to dinner. So this program should be around hour 15 minutes to hour 30, and then after that, we have dinner.
Bismillah.
Hello. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. I would like to welcome all of you to MDQ Masjid. We have a really important program today. We've been planning this for a while. Sister Amina did a program for ladies a while ago, and I wanted to do a similar program for entire community, because all of us, no one is going to live here forever, and we go through different phases of life. So before I begin, I would like to invite Ustad Tayyib, who I think everyone in this community know him. I would ask him to come and do recitation of Quran. He's the Dean of MDQ. And Brother Tayyib.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, we'll just recite a few ayat from Surah An-Nisa. The surah that talks about inheritance and the rulings in regards to it. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم للرجال نصيب مما ترك الوالدان والأقربون وللنساء نصيب مما ترك الوالدان مما ترك الوالدان والأقربون مما قل منه أو كثر نصيبا مفروضا وإذا حضر القسمة أولو القربى واليتامى والمساكين فارزقوهم منه وقولوا لهم قولا معروفا وليخشى الذين لو تركوا من خلفهم ذرية ضعافا خافوا عليهم فليتقوا الله وليقولوا قولا سديدا إن الذين يأكلون أموال اليتامى ظلما إنما يأكلون في بطونهم نارا وسيصلون سعيرا يوصيكم الله في أولادكم للذكر مثل حظ الأنثيين فإن كن نساء فوق 2 فلهن ثلثا ما ترك وإن كانت واحدة فلها النصف ولأبويه لكل واحد منهما السدس مما ترك إن كان له ولد فإن لم يكن له ولد وورثه أبواه فلأمه الثلث فإن كان له إخوة فلأمه السدس من بعد وصية يوصي بها أو دين آباؤكم وأبناؤكم لا تدرون أيهم أقرب لكم نفعا فريضة من الله إن الله كان عليما حكيما.
Jazakallah, brother. Jazakallah, brother Tayyib. I would like to start with the now introduction. So, Alhamdulillah, as I mentioned, this workshop is about Islamic Estate Planning and Finance workshop. First of all, I am extremely grateful and thankful to all the esteemed guests who have made their way here. I think everyone knows who Mufti Farhan is. He's my younger brother, and everyone on Long Island knows this scholar, Mufti Farhan. So Mufti Farhan grew up in New York. He went and completed his master's in theology from Benoria International University in Pakistan, and finally he also received his PhD in Islamic jurisprudence and law from the same university. He's also specialized in Islamic economic and finance. Currently, he's executive director of Islamic Center of Long Island. All of us know it as ICLI, Westbury, New York. Besides that, he's a spiritual advisor for Islamic affairs of Long Island, on Long Island at Masjid Al-Baqi, consultant for Islamic Center of South Shore Valley Stream, Long Island, Masjid Humza, and he's also the co-founder and president of nonprofit organization for youth called Children of Adam. And I would like to also introduce my brother Sami, who's here. Sami is a regional vice president at Guidance Residential with over 23 years in real estate and Islamic finance. He has helped thousands of families achieving home ownership the ethical way. And please join me to welcome Sami Kabir and Mufti Farhan. And we also have my friend Humza Arshad here. Humza and our kids go to the same school, so that's how we kind of got to know each other, and that's where the conversation got started about doing this program. He's born and raised in London, UK, but we're fortunate that Humza decided to leave UK and come here for studies. And after seeing New York, he decided not to ever go back to UK. Isn't that true, Humza? He studied, came to U.S. For studying investment banking at Baruch, and went to law school and started his career as a judge clerk for Supreme Civil Court and Appellate Division, Second Department. Currently, Humza works with Sister Amina at Amana Law. And Sister Amina, Rashad, she needs no introduction. Matter of fact, Sister Amina, I think I was watching a video at MDQ Academy, which made me learn that you grew up and you were part of this masjid from the childhood. Is that true? Wow, mashallah. So Sister Amina, mashallah, went to Sunday school in this building back there. So she is our homegrown, and we hope that this masjid and this community produce future leaders. With that said, I will start the program. First, I guess first question, Mufti Farhan. Please tell us about children of Adam and the work it is doing.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Let's do that a little better. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala Rasulil Kareem amma ba'd. First and foremost, to the esteemed panel, the panelists, I'm honored and blessed to be in your companionship. Fuad Bhai, thank you so much for your generosity and, of course, hosting us all and moderating this program. To all our mothers and sisters and our brothers and elders who are present here, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless each and every one of us with khair and afiyah and allow us to live our life as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could be pleased with us. The quick question, or I guess the reply to is, what is Children of Adam doing? I'm going to try to be as brief as I can because we have an amazing program in front of us, and that is faith, family, and finance. And I think this is an important part for all of us, that how do we bring forth faith, family, and finance and make the best out of it. So what is the role of Children of Adam? Quickly, it is an organization that was established in 2011. It's almost 14 years now. It was a dream and a passion that I had initially along with 3 other members of Long Island community. And one of the biggest concerns or the desires that I had was to instill a sense of pride in our generations to love their deen and their faith. How can not be arrogant, but how can I live as a proud Muslim? How do we strengthen our lives as Muslims? And in order to strengthen lives, we must strengthen families that will strengthen the youth. And with that being said, alhamdulillah, for the past 14 years, Children of Adam has had 3 core efforts that we have been doing. One is to help people in need, where we, alhamdulillah, cater to orphans and widows and people with mental health illnesses across the world in 9 different countries. Without getting into a lot of details, alhamdulillah, we're creating the first of its kind neuropsychiatric hospital in Pakistan with the population of 250 million people. There are only 2 pediatric psychiatrists in the entire nation itself. 400 psychiatrists in general. So we're creating that. So one of them is helping people in need. Number 2 is global crises that happens across the world, earthquakes and things that we go and promote. And last but not least, and the most important thing to me, is the work of strengthening Muslim life. And that's where the main focus of Children of Adam is, to create spaces, place, online programs, in-person programs, and to create spaces for children where they feel connected enough. And alhamdulillah, we recently started a space in Huntington Station called the Center of Excellence, where all of you are also invited, inshallah, and we're collaborating with all masajid to work together to create spaces and place for our youth to really enjoy their identity of being Muslim, inshallah.
Yes. Jazakallah. Next question is for Sister Amina. I guess we are here for, everyone wants to better understand what is an Islamic will.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. So just a few main points about wills in New York in general. So a will provides for distribution of your assets upon your passing. New York law provides a vastly different schedule than what Islamic law provides. So for example, in New York, if one spouse passes away and there are no children, then the spouse inherits the entirety of their estate. Islamically, of course, that varies. So for example, the wife would inherit an eighth or husband would inherit a fourth. There are certain key players and key terms that you should be aware of when we're talking about wills in New York. Beneficiaries, first and foremost, those are the individuals that will inherit under the will. Your estate is everything that you own when you pass away. There's two distinctions here, and Mufti Farhan, of course, can explain the Islamic distinction, but in New York, your estate are those assets that don't already have a beneficiary listed. So for example, if you have a 401k and that 401k has a beneficiary, that is not technically a part of your estate under New York law, and what that means is that your 401k is not addressed within your will. The executor is the individual that you name in your will that is responsible for collecting and distributing the estate upon your passing. And probate is the process for filing the will with the court in order to trigger the legal process that needs to be in place in order to permit the executor to do their duties. With respect to Sharia compliant wills, there's certain requirements in New York. One is that you have to be of sound mind at the time that you execute the will. It has to be done in the presence of two witnesses. Ideally, those are two witnesses that are uninterested parties, meaning they should not be beneficiaries. The most important thing for us as Muslims is that it has to be specific. So you cannot say, I wish to distribute my assets according to Islamic law, because there's no judge in New York State that is going to sit there and ascertain what that means. And the next important thing for everybody to note is that handwritten wills in New York are generally not valid. There are a few distinct circumstances under which they are. So for example, military personnel that are on active duty, but for the vast majority of us, a handwritten will is not valid.
Jazakallah, Sister Amina. Thank you for shedding that light. But with that said, I will now ask Brother Humza Arshad to also kind of shed some light on revocable trusts.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalam. You can do your introduction too. So if I butchered your introduction.
No, you did great. Thank you so much, Brother Fawad, and thank you, MDQ, for having us here today. Revocable trust. So this is a legal document which allows you to be able to avoid probate. It's a trust that's set up where you can create someone who's you can have your beneficiaries in there, you can have your trustee in there, who would be the person who's managing it. But the idea of a revocable trust is it gives you flexibility. It allows you to pull it back when you need to. A lot of people, before they go to Hajj, consider revocable trusts because there's always this fear at the back of their mind that, hey, if I go to Hajj, me and my spouse, perhaps I may not make it back and I may be blessed enough to pass away in Haram. So a lot of people consider doing revocable trusts before they go, because what it allows to happen is the properties in that trust flows through to the beneficiaries, i.e. their children, without having to go through probate. Probate means having to go through surrogates court, which currently is anywhere from 9 months to 2 years, a lawyer fighting and convincing the judge and explaining to the judge that this beneficiary, this child, has the right over this property. The idea is the judge is looking to represent the children as the citizens of the state. So they want to make sure that their rights are being adhered to. So that's what the probate process is. So that's what a revocable trust is. And it allows for flexibility by being able to pull it back when you need to. The problem with revocable trust, though, it doesn't have any liability protection. If you put your home into a revocable trust, if somebody tries to sue you, they can still be able to come through to you personally. It's not like an irrevocable trust, which we'll discuss in a couple of minutes, where you'll see that it allows you to have liability protection. If someone slips and falls outside your house and tries to sue you, they can get through to you personally on a revocable trust. And there's less tax benefits on it as well.
Thank you, Humza. I saw Humza earlier. He's so well dressed. I thought, and I saw Mufti Farhan. Anyone seeing this would think that this might be a nikah ceremony. Just looking, looking at Mufti Farhan and Humza sitting next to each other. So, I guess you bring an important point with revocable trust. With revocable trust, I guess we need to better understand irrevocable trust. So, with Sister Amina, would you be able to shed some light on irrevocable trust?
Sure. So the best way that I've found to explain revocable versus irrevocable trusts in general to clients is you can think of an irrevocable trust as a trust in general. Think of it as a container. You are creating a container using a legal document, and then we transfer your assets into that container. When it's an irrevocable trust, it is a container with a lock, meaning once you put your assets in, you can't get the assets out. A revocable trust is a container as well, but it's a container with an open lid. So you can move assets in and out freely from that trust. There are, as Brother Humza said, there are certain tax benefits to irrevocable trusts. There's also potentially things that we're discussing that we can do to benefit the community with irrevocable trusts. In terms of estate planning and asset planning, there are sometimes there's children that are special needs, and people may need to look after those special needs children in a way that they don't necessarily need to look after other members of their family. And so there's something called a special needs trust, which is specifically an irrevocable trust where you can transfer your assets into that trust, and then it does not count with respect to it doesn't count against the incapacitated individual or the special needs individual that needs to qualify for certain social security benefits or supplemental security benefits and the like. The two main differences, as Brother Humza said, is you give up control with an irrevocable trust because now you've placed this asset into a closed and locked container. Creditor protection, so because you've placed the asset into a container that you can't access anymore, creditors can't access that as well. With a revocable trust, it's really just looked at as an extension of you, even from a tax perspective. So if you put an asset into a revocable trust, all the taxes will pass through directly to you, whereas with an irrevocable trust, you have to get a separate EIN number, and the trust will have its own tax return as well. Both revocable and irrevocable will avoid probate. They are both private, so you don't have to go through the court process. Nobody knows what the terms of the trust are. And it's really just about what serves the family the best. Often with an irrevocable trust, we don't recommend it for people that need access to their asset later down the line, but there are circumstances under which it will benefit you.
Sister Amina, I guess I'll ask you a question. So how do you typically, if someone comes to you and someone comes like, I'll take me as an example. I have like 2 kids, I'm like getting close to 50 years. I have like 401k and this and that. So how does the process typically works? Like when someone comes to you and starts the consultation, like do you advise based on the person's profile and what they want? Because obviously I assume like my brother sitting out there may have different needs and different, I guess if you're in different age as well, like my father may have different requirements. So how does typically this process works?
My first question is always, what is your goal for your family? And I do ask questions about whether there's any special needs children or whether there's any particular, like a more sensitive issue that your family needs to address, because that's our starting point. And one of the conversations that I've been having, and I've had with Mufti Farhan as well, is just the idea that sometimes people come to us and although they would love to do things properly from like an Islamic estate plan, they sometimes feel that it's restrictive. But I think as Muslims, we have to always remember Islam is for all times, all places, all societies. And there's wisdom in what Allah has ordained for us. And so certainly there are ways that we can work to develop an estate plan that is going to help your family, but also that is going to abide by the laws of Allah. And so that is up to us as attorneys to come up with something, and obviously to consult with scholars such as Mufti Farhan to be creative. But absolutely, number one, because this is such a personal thing and it's so much about family, we need to know about the family circumstances and what needs to be addressed in particular, and what your goals are for your family and for your legacy.
Thank you. Thank you with that. I guess it's most important, being in masjid, I assume what comes to your mind is like, Islamically, and Islamically, it's like, what is the Islamic perspective on finance? And for that, I think we are lucky to have Mufti Farhan here. So I'll go to Mufti Farhan. Maybe you can shed some light on it. How should we think about it, and what are the key things to consider?
So before I answer that question, for all of us, I think one thing to understand is that all of us sitting here or present here are blessed in so many ways. Even for those who are going through a difficult time are still blessed. There are always more blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than the difficulties in our lives, if we were to look at it. And for all the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, we are responsible for the blessings in our lives. And for all responsibilities, we're also accountable as well. So these three things come together. If you are blessed, then you're responsible. And if you're responsible, then you're accountable. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made you a father, and if you have a daughter or a son, you have children, you're blessed. But with that blessing comes responsibility. And that responsibility is directly attached to accountability between people and with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So anything in our lives that we consider as a blessing comes with responsibility. Our wealth, our mal, is also a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if we are blessed with that, then we're also responsible as well. The Prophet ﷺ said that on the day of Qiyamah, a person will not be able to move their feet till they do not answer 5 questions. And we've heard this hadith multiple times. And one of the questions that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned was that how did you live your life? How did you live your life when you were young? Where did you earn and where did you spend? 2 things out of the 5 are related to our finances. And the 5th question is, how much did you practice upon the ilm and knowledge that Allah had given you? So out of the 5 questions, 2 of them are related to our finances. So a lot of time what we take as a mistake, and forgive me for this, is that we think that our deen is only the 4 walls of the masjid. We forget that our deen continues out of the masjid as well. My deen is at home. My deen is at our work, in our schools, in our colleges, in our businesses, in our families, in our interactions. For those who have studied a part of Islamic studies, which is known as fiqh, Islamic jurisprudence, there's a very beautiful kitab which the Hanafi school teaches. It's called Hidayah. It has 4 thick volumes. Only one part of it is all of your ibadat, your prayers, your hajj, your zakat, all the things that we usually consider to be deen. The 3/4 of the entire book, which are thousands of pages, is ma'amalat, ma'asharat, akhlaq, our dealing, our interactions, our businesses, buying and selling. So more than half of our fiqh in Islam deals with things that we don't even consider Islam or deen anymore, right? A lot of time we say, I can't lie in the masjid. What, does that allow us to lie outside? So what we really need to understand is that when it comes to Islamic finance or our wealth, there's a huge part of it that changes our life. So Islamic finance matters because it restores ethics, it restores fairness, and there is a purpose of life behind wealth. Because it reminds us that wealth is just not personal possession. And I want myself to understand this, that wealth is not just our personal possession, but our wealth is an amanat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, it's mine. The title is on the name, the car is on the name, or our family's name. Yes, it is our personal possession, but the larger concept of wealth in Islam is that it is a trust and amanat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. That's one important thing to always remember. And also to remember that when we talk about general finance, conventional finance, it usually gives preferences and prioritizes the profit over purpose. When we talk about Islamic finance, it gives purpose over the profit itself. Yes, there is profit. You can make money. You could be good Muslim and you could be rich. You could be an imam and you could be rich. Right, Sheikh Tayyib? You can do that? Is that allowed? Yeah. I need some support, bro. So you could live a good life. It's okay. But as long as there is purpose behind all of this, it should not just be based upon profit itself. Islamic finances teaches us the purpose itself. And it also, what it does is that it integrates and gathers faith, financial responsibilities. Because when Allah makes us blessed, He also makes us responsible as well. So when it comes to Islamic financing, it also allows us to ensure that we earn, invest, and spend in the right way. Because on the day of Qiyamah, it will also be how we spent. And I know it's a very critical topic. I was discussing with my dear friend. I was in Canada with one of my friends, Brother Zubairia. Someone mentioned about him as well recently. I was with him and we were talking about this. Is that, does your wrongdoing affect, or your haram earning affects the life of your children or not? It's actually a very deep question. I didn't have an answer to it. I said, I need to look further. Like, does my wrong decision now affect and impact the iman or the goodness and the well-being of my children or not? Because what we know from the outside is that your good deeds does affect them in a good way. Like when Musa alayhi salam was traveling. Am I too long in answering questions?
No.
Oh my God, I feel bad.
No.
Talk a lot.
We want to hear you.
So when Musa alayhi salam and Khidr were traveling, and they went to, the whole story with 3 different situations. They sat in a boat, he fixed a wall, the child's life was taken. When he was fixing that wall, he said, وَكَانَ أَبُوهُمَا صَالِحٌ, that the forefather of that child were righteous. So ulama have said that the righteousness of the forefathers had allowed a prophet and a righteous person to come and save the wealth of those children. Which means that it does have some sort of impact, maybe in a positive way. Does it affect us negatively or not? That's a different topic to itself. So, making the right financial decision is a safety for us and our children and our generations as well. And not only us, but it protects the society at large as well. Because as Muslims, we don't just live by ourselves. We need to create ummah. We need to create community. We need to strengthen the people around us. And that's the big thing that we all need to take back, brothers and sisters. That we need to help each other grow. We need to be happy at the success of each other and lift one another to become stronger and better, because that's how the ummah is built. It was never about individuals. It was never about people and groups and sects of individuals. It was about an ummah. Kuntum khayra ummah. Chapter 4, verse number 110. Defining us as ummah at large. So in short, forgive me for the long lecture itself, Islamic finance matters because it transforms money from being a means of greed into a means of good. And I think this is all of us need to take back. And forgive me for this, but we live in a very materialistic world. Dunya running at all times and all moments. Even my sajdas, I'm thinking about things other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I talk about myself, none of you. My own sajdas are empty from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we need to turn the point of wealth from greed to goodness. That's how we need to change. And it's possible. Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anhu, a man, for 1/3 of his wealth was given as sadaqah, 1/3 as charity, and 1/3 as endowment. Meaning, find me a person more generous than him. And even till today, there are endowments in the names of Usman radiallahu anhu. Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu, one of the most wealthiest men to ever walk on the face of this earth, became Ashra al-Mubashara. So it's never the money, it's how we handle our money and finances. You cannot say that you need to leave money to come close to Allah. No. Out of the 10 Ashra Mubashara, 6 of them were the biggest businessmen of their time. They had some of the largest businesses. Khadijatul Kubra radiallahu anha received the salam of Allah as the first person on this world after the Anbiya to receive salam. She was one of the biggest businesswomen ever to be on the face of this earth. She received the salam of Allah. So it's never that if you have money, you can't come close to Allah. It's about how we use our money. I'm going to let this go, man. I'm going to go on.
No, thank you for educating on Islamic finance. Now, one of the most important things that you talk about, it's one is earning and second is spending. And probably one of the biggest decisions that we make and where probably we think about Islamic financing is when we're purchasing our house. So that's where usually Islamic finance word actually really comes to mind. That's the first time any of us would really think about, oh, Islam and finance. So with that, we're fortunate enough to have Sami Kabir here, who's with Guidance. Sami, I have a question for you. Can you start by telling us what Guidance Residential is and what makes it different from other financial institutions? This is a layup question for any sales guy, dude. Go for it.
Sure, absolutely, I can. Thank you so much, Brother Fuad, and thank you, MDQ and the management for us having here, and thank you, my colleagues and the panelists, to put this together. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. What is Islamic finance? Before I start giving you an answer about Islamic finance, I wanted to talk about understanding what is riba first, because if we don't understand the foundation, it will be difficult to understand Islamic finance itself. So riba is a profit collected or paid on a loan agreement or a transaction. Riba is the creation of a profit from nothing. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the power to create something out of nothing. And riba is strictly prohibited in all kind of faiths, whether Muslims, Christian, or Jews. And this is the verse that we all know in Surah Baqarah, verse 275. It says, I'll say it in English, those who take unlawful interest will stand before God on the day of judgment as those whose minds have been corrupted by the influence of shaitan. They say that commerce is just like interest, but God has made commerce lawful and has forbidden interest. This is where we, our community, myself being in Islamic finance for the last 15 years with Guidance, I see that our community thinks that everything is interest if there's a percentage, or if you're buying and selling, there is a misconception. And this is, I'm going to help all of you understand that what bank does and what Islamic finance is all about. Now, how many of you knew that Guidance Residential is not a bank? With a raise of hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. About 10 out of 50 or 60 folks. So you did not know who we are. And who we are today, that you're going to find out, it matters. And what we do, it really matters. Now, Guidance Capital is our parent company. And the purpose of Guidance Capital is to create value-driven mission to develop Islamic financial programs and services for the Muslims here in USA and abroad. So Guidance Capital has subsidiary in USA, Guidance Financial, Guidance Residential, Guidance Home Services, and Guidance Securities and Investments. What I'm going to talk about what Guidance Residential offers. Now, we are operating in 34 states. We launched in 2002, and we financed over $11 billion in financing and served over 40,000 customers. Now, our humble beginning that I'll share with you, then I'm going to go into Islamic finance itself. It took us 3 years of research and development, investing over $25 million, involving 18 different law firms. And after 3 years of R&D, we were able to start a program called Declining Balance Co-Ownership Program. In Arabic, it's called Musharaka Mutanakisa, or it's also known as Sharakatul Milk. in English, declining balance co-ownership program. Now, these are the Sharia boards that you see on the screen that we have, and I will mention about Justice Mohammad Taqi Usmani, who is the chairman of our Sharia board. We have an active Sharia board of this with these members. I had a thought that probably I'll ask Mufti Farhan later on to talk about Mufti Taqi Usmani and your oh, mashallah. So we're going to talk about that, and I will quickly move on to the Islamic finance part. Now, why does Islamic finance matter more than ever? If you look around the world today, what are you going to see? You will see rising inequality, rising debt, rising poverty, and rising unemployment. 8 men are richer than half of the world. The richest 10% of the world population holds 86% of the world's wealth, and top 1% alone account for 46% of the global assets. 30,000 children under the age of 5 die every day due to debt, interest. 653,000 people are homeless in the United States. 38.8 million people in US lives in poverty. 13.5% of the US households are food insecure. An estimated 210 million people are unemployed in the world. And why? Why such rising inequality, debt, poverty, and unemployment? There's a root cause for it. Everything has a reason. The root cause is the modern economic system. And the modern economic system includes the monetary system, the fractional reserve banking system, value-neutral economic philosophies, debt-based economy, interest-based financial system. What happens is this modern economic system is exploited, and there's a process for it. And the process is known as concentration of wealth by the big banks. They lobby, they speculate, they deregulate, and they exploit. And the results are the debt, the poverty, unemployment, and inequality. And that creates a socio-economic imbalance, lack of social cohesion, and economic and political instability. Now, if you didn't know, the most of the money in our economy is created by the banks. Did you know that? This is a screen. It's a complex topic, but I'm not going to go over with it, but I'll just summarize this for you. Every year, enough new money must be made in USA to create inflation. Now, this slide, if you understand this slide, you will understand the difference between the bank and Islamic finance. You deposit, let's say you deposit $1,000 in your bank. The bank is going to keep 10% of it, which is $100, and they will lend $900 out. And that $900 gets deposited into the bank again, and they'll lend out $810. And then that $810 gets deposited into the bank again, and it gets lent again. Through this process of these 3 steps, $1,000 becomes $3,439 out of thin air, just depositing, changing hands. It created no value. And that's what known as a fractional reserve banking cycle. So this screen tells you something, meaning that everything that exists in the world, the fictional financial system, the economy is 26 times larger than everything else produced on earth. What it means is, to simply put, if there's a 1 gold bar on earth, 1 gold bar, and I'm telling you there are 26 of them, but 26 of them are not true. They're just one gold bar. So this is what has done the fractional reserve system. And why it's done this way? Because this is the only way wealth and income can be taken from the bottom to the top. The 10% of the population are the net receivers of the bank's interest, and 90% from the 90% of the population. And it's done in such a way through value neutral philosophy. The value neutral philosophy, what the banks would do, you want money? No problem, we'll give it to you. Whatever kind of business you're involved, whether it aligns with faith or not, they will just lend you. In order to lend more money, they will deregulate. And then in order to even make more money, they will speculate. For example, the 2008 subprime boom, they speculated the market and everything crashed. And that creates the instability. But however, if you take an approach of Islamic finance, it has values, there is a regulation, there's a transparency, and there is a stability. Now the solution is Islamic finance. But how? And how is it different? Islamic finance is rooted in a divine law. It has an economic justice. There's a circulation of wealth. There's a commoditization, and there is a risk sharing. Now, on the screen, you will see the difference between investment and lending. If you're investing, you can invest in asset-backed securities. And it's a win-win framework. It invests in real asset, risks are shared, and it's just and fair, and justice and equality. And if you are doing a lending, then there is a win-lose framework. It creates debt. Its risk is pushed into one side. It's unfair gains, and rich gets richer. Now, how Islamic finance methods work? There's a murabaha, which is known as purchase and resale. There's a ijara, which is lease to own, and the one that's musharaka, which is partnership. Now, musharaka has two kinds. Everybody thinks musharaka means partnership, so it's, partnership similar to a business. But there are two types of musharaka. One is a joint ventureship, and the other one is a joint ownership. So what guidance uses is the joint ownership. Now, why murabaha cannot be used in USA for home financing is because it has no permissible path to securitization. Ijara cannot be used because the leasee does not obtain the ownership until the very end of the agreement. And there's a high degree of risk with this path. Musharaka works because it's very equitable. Ownership is established from the beginning, and the transfer of ownership happens in real time. Now, here's an example of a Sharia-compliant home financing where you can purchase a home, the down payment that you put is your share that you start. And then you start to make a payment. And your payment has two portions. One is for you to buy your share from your co-owner, from your co-partner, and the other portion of the payment goes as a usage fee for you using the portion that you still do not yet own. So your monthly payment helps you increase your share. At the same time, you're also paying a utilization fee, a usage fee for using the portion that's still not yours. And at one point, you become 100% homeowner. Versus conventional loan, you are 100% owner on the property already, but you have a loan on you. And how do you pay off the loan? You pay the principal and the interest, and then you pay off. Now the benefits and the difference is there's a capped late payment fee for a musharaka program. Typically with a regular bank, there's a 2 to 5% if you're late, and it compounds. The Musharaka program, the benefit is also it's a non-recourse commitment, meaning that if you're not able to make the payment and the house needs to be sold, the bank with the recourse loan agreement, they have the rights to come after your other assets. But in this program, with the Islamic financing program, with guidances program, you might own multiple different properties, but guidance will now have any rights to come after. Why? Because you have a co-ownership agreement with guidance through an LLC, and that LLC in real time protects your other assets. And the risks are shared. If there's an act of God, natural disaster or a flood, insurance company, most of the time, they do not cover all the losses. And that time, guidance will share pro rata of the loss that's not covered by the insurance. Typically, regular bank would not share anything with you if you're short in getting your house fixed. Now, there's very important key element for you to understand that guidance is not a bank. We built our company from the ground up to be an Islamic financial institution, independent and unaffiliated from any bank. And most importantly, we are approved by an independent Sharia board. Now, these are some of the media that I wanted to share with you that has looked into our program and they talked about it. And with that, I will give it back to you, Brother Fuad, if you have any other questions.
No, that was excellent, Brother Sami. I remember when guidance was launched back in the days. The first time the guidance came, and like I think Mufti Taqi Usmani actually came and he was doing those lectures. The biggest criticism that among the public used to get, and maybe Mufti Farhan can later on when he speaks, he can talk about it. People used to say is like, oh, it's like grabbing the air from this side or that side. It's the same thing. It's like, you know, it's like they're getting the money same way. It's like, how's it different? Like financially, it doesn't make any difference. So maybe down the road, maybe Mufti Farhan can shed some light with that. But that said, Humza, can you shed some light on Islamic trust as well? And then I'll go and bring in Sister Amina as well.
Yeah. So, hello? Okay,
Yeah.
it's on. I'm gonna stand up. Been sitting for a while. Okay, so how it works with your estate planning when you come to us is you tell us about your situation, right? Your age, how many kids you have, how many assets you have, and all that good stuff. And then we then decide and help you, with you, collaborate with you in understanding what's the best source of this legal document for you. It could be a trust. It could be a revocable trust. It could be an irrevocable trust. It could be a will. Now, once we've decided on what kind of trust it could be or what kind of will it could be, we then speak with Mufti Farhan to make sure that the laws of Islamic Sharia are abided by in that legal document. So we go through the first edit, and then we collaborate with Mufti Farhan to ensure that all laws of Islamic Sharia are met as far as inheritance law and any other law. When we come to talking about whether a revocable trust works for you or an irrevocable trust, we go through the pros and cons of each. Many of you who have met with us would know that we always discuss the pros and cons of each, so you understand the differences, but at the end of the day, you know the reason why we're recommending what we're recommending. If you're a young couple, for instance, who's got very young kids, and you want to go to Hajj, and you want to protect your property, and you want to make sure that your kids don't have to go through probate, we're going to probably recommend a revocable trust. And then we're also going to recommend a will, so your guardianship for your children is covered as well. Because we want to make sure that there is someone that you've assigned who would take care of your children after your passing, that would be addressed in your will. If you're a more couple that's a little later in life and you have kids that are above the age of 18 and they're adult kids, we would likely recommend an irrevocable trust. because at the end of the day, an irrevocable trust, just like Sister Amina said, it's assets that you've put into a container and it's locked. And the only way you would ever be able to remove that lock is through the powers of the beneficiary. Sister Amina, you want to add something to that?
Sami, maybe you can.
I think the very simple way to talk about Islamic estate planning in general, whether it be a trust, a will, or anything else, is we live in a system, we have a secular law. What we need to do in terms of your Islamic estate plan is we are building a system within that system, and the system that we're building that is Sharia compliant needs to also be compliant with the larger secular law. And again, that needs to also take into account your personal family circumstances and situation. So I think Humza covered it quite well, but really you can think about the complexity that's involved in making sure that the intersection of Islamic law and secular law are covered.
Jazakallah. Thank you, Sister Amina. I would like to, I guess, having the benefit of Mufti Farhan here, so from Sharia's perspective, how important is it for Muslims to align both their financial dealings and state plans with Islamic values?
So when it comes to, again, the same point that I mentioned again was that our deen and our Islam is not only limited to the four walls of the masjid. Our deen and our Islam continues at every moment and aspect of our life. And I hope that I could take this back and you can actually take this back as well, that aligning our financial dealings and estate plannings with Islamic values is not just important, it's a farida, it's an obligation. And I'm going to say this again, because from a mufti's perspective, it's hard to say something is fard or not. I remember the day that we got selected to be in our mufti course, our teacher said, you took a very big decision. And then, of course, the teachers, to humble their students, would say, if you knew your responsibility, you would never be sitting here. Because your one say can become the command of Allah. You sign off on something, and you can either do something or don't do something for someone that can make or break their life. So it's a big thing. So I want to be careful in selecting my words and say this again, that aligning our Islamic aligning our financial dealings and estate planning in the Islamic values is not just important, it's an obligation. Allah tells us in the Quran, when it comes to our mal, our wealth, even with inheritance, that it has to be done in a proper manner. I remember when we were students in madrasa, our teachers would say, write your wasiyat. And we would tell the teacher, like, meaning write your will. And we would say, Ustaji, we only got books. That's the only thing we have. Like, what are we going to leave behind? He said, no, it is your responsibility, because at the least it will remind you that you need to die and you need to leave this world. That's the least that will remind you that, you know, this is not mine forever. It's definitely passing on. So, from your point, Fuad Bhai, the question that you asked is how important it is for Muslims to align both their financial dealings and estate planning through Islamic values. I would say it's a farida, it's an obligation. Whatever assets we have, small or large, whatever it is, I think it's very, very important that we get in touch with individuals. And again, forgive me, for those who know me for 20-some years, this is not a program to solicitate or sell you anything. It's about a reminder that we have an obligation. You reach out to people you trust, people who you can rely upon, and people who hold up to the values of their deen and their dunya and will be able to guide you in a proper way. Alhamdulillah, we have an amazing team of brothers and sisters here who will be able to help and assist with home buying and with wills and trusts. But I would say it is an obligation for us to reach out and say, you know what, I want to make the right choice for myself and for my wealth and my finances, because it is one of the biggest questions on the day of Qiyamah. And it's part of our iman, it's part of our faith itself. And once we take care of it, I'm very sure that it will help us and help our children and sort of, protect us from disputes and issues that may arise when we're not there, right? And I think this is also a great responsibility for us. So I would go back to the point is that every one of us, you might say, you know what, I don't have enough, or I don't think I am eligible to make a will. I would say, please go and speak to someone. Speak to an expert and say, what is my Islamic financial responsibility at this moment on the next steps that I should be taking? And as Brother Humza mentioned, everyone will have a different route. It may not be, sometimes it's will, sometimes it's trust that it's built and structured to the way that's going to be the most beneficial for us. So I would go back and remind myself and all of us that make sure that we have done the right things now in order to protect our wealth and our finances and how we deal with these things, inshallah.
Jazakallah, Mufti Farhan. So I think we have discussed quite a few complex topics. Usually from Islamic perspective, we only hear about will, but estate planning and revocable versus irrevocable trusts. I bet many of you have questions that need clarification. So we have a very steamed panel here. So I am going to open it up to all of you. If any of you have any questions, this will be the time, and just be precise. So go ahead, raise your hand, and I'll pass the mic over to you. Can we? Zen? All right, we'll use you for ladies. So you hold that.
You can just put it.
Okay, we will need them.
Assalamu alaikum. So, thank you so much to all of you for taking the time. I think one question I have is regarding irrevocable trusts. And while I understand that, people can have certain circumstances with a special child or what have you, but let's just say someone's looking for protection and that's why they want to have the irrevocable trust. Is it absolutely, is there no way out once you set the trust up, or can you still operate the trust, let's say through the members of the trust or the beneficiaries, such as your kids? Is that still possible? And under what circumstances or other reasons do people set up an irrevocable trust?
Jazakallah, brother, for the question. So, number one, you asked, how does someone get out of the irrevocable trust once it's set up? It's through the beneficiaries. The beneficiaries have the power to do so. So the beneficiaries have to be of an adult age. That's why it's not recommended to have an irrevocable trust if you have very young children, because if you decide to pull out of it, it's hard to get one enforced if your youngest child is still 10 years old and they're a beneficiary. So it's better to have one at an age where your beneficiaries are of adult age. And question number two, I think you said, was what other circumstances do people decide to have irrevocable trust? Irrevocable trusts are great when you don't want to sell this property. In New York, that's very prevalent. We live in a real estate market which, alhamdulillah, is very, very healthy. It's one of the cities in the world, like London, like the city I'm from, where real estate always goes up in value. And the parents understand, this home that I've purchased, I don't want to sell it, and I really don't want my kids to sell it. But at the end of the day, after I'm gone, I'd rather they can decide, because it's theirs at that point. So it's a good idea if you're in that mindset, that I want to put this into an irrevocable trust. If you have rental properties, the rental properties would then be under an LLC for each respective rental property. And the membership interest of that LLC would be under the irrevocable trust. So think of your irrevocable trust as a giant mothership, which everything flows from. And the beneficiaries are your children. You don't have to, you can keep adding to it and buying more properties and growing it. And the best part is they will receive the capital gain step-up basis for your children. You will have legal protection from anyone on the outside if they try to sue you. You will also have legal protection from Medicaid and Medicare, from the 5-year clawback, which is long-term care coverage which means at a later stage in life, when you need nursing home care, rehab clinic care, or at home health aid, those sort of costs can be clawed back by Medicaid or Medicare, whatever you're on, in the last few years of your life. If once you have those expenses and Medicaid has paid those on your behalf and you've passed away, Medicaid or Medicare can go back into your estate to your children and say, hey, your father passed away, he owes us $80,000 in expenses we paid on his behalf because he spent the last few years of his life in a dialysis center. If your kids, if you have properly put your house into an irrevocable trust and you have no other assets left on your name, your kids can say, my dad has no assets, and they can't do anything about it. Do you want to add anything to that?
Just one follow-up question. Is it possible to set up an irrevocable and a revocable trust? You put some things in an irrevocable trust. Is it possible to structure it that way?
Yes, you can. So you can set up as many trusts as you want. And I think depending on your circumstances and how complex your finances are, sometimes that's the best route to go because there are things that you want access to. So for example, the family home, if you anticipate that you're going to sell it and maybe buy another home, it doesn't make sense to put it into an irrevocable trust. Whereas, as Humza said, if it's an investment property, for example, and you know you're going to keep this as real property and you're going to hold on to it long term, it would make sense to put it in an irrevocable trust. So it's really about designing a plan that works for you, your finances, your family, and it's, when we say estate planning, it's truly planning, right? So that's part of it.
And I just want to add one more thing, very important. During the grantor's lifetime, the grantor in these situations is the person who currently owns a home. For instance, you still get to legally live there, you still get to legally enjoy the tax benefits, and you still get to enjoy the income from your rental properties. So don't think that, hey, I've transferred my property to this irrevocable trust, I don't own it no more. What does that mean for me? During your lifetime, nothing has changed. During your lifetime, everything is the same. It's all about what happens after your lifetime. We will make sure the correct provisions are in the trust to ensure you're protected during your lifetime and your children receive the property as you wish, as per Islamic inheritance law as well.
Thank you, Hamza. I guess I have a follow-up question to that. Are there any tax benefits going one versus another? Because obviously you want to ensure that your kids end up inheriting the most out of it, and and the government doesn't end up taking as much share when you do pass away.
Sure. So the revocable trust, like we said earlier, it's basically an extension of yourself. So it's passing through and you're paying taxes as if it doesn't exist. It's basically invisible. Irrevocable trust, the taxes, that trust is actually going to file its own tax return. Sometimes with irrevocable trust, one of the downsides may be when the trust is earning income, trusts, the progressive rate hits a trust much faster than it does you or I as an individual. So that's one thing to keep in mind with when you're considering irrevocable versus revocable. But certainly, I mean, the federal trigger for estate tax is like 13 point something million. The New York State trigger for estate tax is like 6 million. So you really need to be up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. I think we have a next question. Go ahead, brother.
So in the example that you gave about a real estate portfolio, right? And you mentioned that the LLC can own that real estate. So I guess in the governing documents for the LLC or in the trust would be a beneficiary of the LLC. So until, let's say if it's an irrevocable trust, you can enjoy the rental income until you're operating it, and then the trust becomes the beneficiary of that LLC. Is that true?
Not beneficiary.
Okay.
The LLC, as you may understand, LLC is created by membership interests. Those membership interests are owned by the trust. So when when your accountant, your CPA or us, when whoever creates the LLC, when they put the owner is the name of the trust. So for instance, if your last name is Ahmed and the name of your trust is Ahmed Family Trust, the ownership of that LLC would be Ahmed Family Trust. And at the end of the trust, we put a schedule. And the schedule lists all the properties and LLCs it owns. So we list in there all the assets this trust owns as a reminder. And so what happens is, going back to Sister Amina's point, when the tax return is filed, the LLC's tax return flows right into the trust, because the trust is the owner, the irrevocable trust. And then the trust's income flows through to you during your lifetime. And then after your lifetime, it's its own perpetual entity that exists until your kids want to close it out.
Two questions on that. So, can you still, as a guarantor, can you still get that rental income while, even though the trust is the beneficiary or the owner?
During your lifetime?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the second, so the trust cannot be a beneficiary; it has to be an owner.
Yeah, the trust isn't a beneficiary in this scenario. The trust is the owner.
Oh.
The beneficiaries are your children or whomever you'd like to put on the trust to enjoy that trust asset after you've passed away. So during your lifetime, you have your own personal usage, but after your lifetime.
Assalamu alaikum. I have a question. First of all, thank you very much. This is a very important information we are getting first time. So I'm very much impressed, and it was a lot of time we are thinking how to save ourselves, especially end of the whole life working hard here, 35 years. We have a one assets house. So we have to protect and it make sure that it should go to our beneficiaries. In order to do that practically, which door I should knock? This is the first thing. Where should I go to whom I should contact? Or in order to do this, I'm talking about the will. How long it will take? And will it cost us something to make it?
Yes, so usually the process begins with us at Amana Law, and you would come and meet with us or have a phone conversation with us, and we would go over you, your family, and your assets, right? Because it's more than just a client. We want to build a relationship. We want to understand. We want to understand where your mind's going, your short-term goals, your long-term goals. And then we give advice on what we think is best, a trust or will. If you say, I want the trust, but then I also want the will because I also want to protect other things, then we create the will for you. We collaborate with Mufti Farhan. And as far as cost goes, it can vary. It depends all on everyone's scenario, because an estate planning package, someone can have a very simple will. Some people want health proxies, power of attorneys. So there really isn't a way to say there's one just menu price. It would have to be discussed individually. And some people don't realize they have a lot more than they think. When they start talking, they're like, oh wait, I have that. My wife has some gold. Oh wait, we also have this. And then we're like, oh, this is quite a bit of assets, more than you thought. You thought you had one house, but you have a lot more than that. Alhamdulillah. And and then we discuss price and work and whatever would be involved.
And how long this will take to complete?
How long it would take? Once we receive whatever documents we need, once we have the initial consult, then we would receive documents from you, right? And after receiving documents, we can get it done as quickly as 5 to 6 business days. And it could be slower than that based on just the interaction we're having. If we need other documentation from you, it can go up to even a couple of weeks, 3 weeks. It all depends. Some people call us 2 weeks before Hajj. And they say, we need a will as soon as possible, brother. Please, we're leaving for Hajj. We just found out through Nusuk. We're leaving. And, we make sure we get it done quickly.
So leave us some contact with us, please.
Inshallah. That's why we had this pad going around the room, because we've all worked really hard to put an ebook together, and we have put all the information we discussed today in a lot more detail. And it's a beautiful ebook that we've designed and published, and we'd like to give it to you guys for free. If whoever's shared their email address will inshallah be receiving a copy of this ebook, and you will have access to everything we've discussed, everyone's contact information, inshallah. So
Thank you, brother.
And yeah, I have his cell phone number, so if he doesn't respond to your call, I'll make sure that I give you his personal number. The sister has a question. First, let me let that sister take the question, and then we'll come back to you, brother. Is it?
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
I have a lot of questions, and quite recently I discussed with someone that I was interested in doing a trust. There's so many factors involved, and it got very complicated. It was spinning my head. I would like to meet with someone, but I do have questions, and I always think ahead of time and positive and negatives. Let's say you have grown children and you have an irrevocable trust. They're married. The divorce rate in this country is sky high. What happens to the spouses of your children while you have this trust? And because of the law, everything's 50-50, state law. What happens with the trust, your children? God forbid you have a bad daughter-in-law or a gold digger, like they say, a bad son-in-law who is ill-treating your daughter, and you do not want to leave assets for that person or persons. How does that affect the trust, whether it's revocable or irrevocable? That's one. That's mind-boggling for me, because I'd love to see children being happy and with what's going on. You never know. Number two, let's say you have the trust and you list all your assets, and 6 months from after you finish doing the trust, you decide, like, I want to sell one of the land or a house. How does that affect the trust in times of, death or whatever? So those are actually a lot of things that are in my mind, and I have a lot of questions. And if someone could actually reach out to me, I did leave my telephone number, and if someone could discuss these things with me, because I do have a will, and I'm finding out, I don't know, because we used to travel a lot, I used to always say if something happened, and I must tell you, I did leave all my assets to a lot of Islamic non-for-profit, inshallah. And because we traveled a lot, and in case we all go together, that was one of my reasons for leaving all my assets to a lot of non-profit, especially Darul Loom in New York, in Jamaica, and Al-Ihsan Academy, so on and so forth. But so I want to put all that into it, and I do need to talk to someone because it's a lot in my head. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallah. I guess this goes more for Sister Amina, because it kind of addresses your specialties, two specialties.
So the good news is that inheritance is separate property. So anything that your child inherits is not subject to division in a divorce, provided that it's not commingled. What that means is that if spouse A inherits from their parents and they go and deposit that inheritance into a joint bank account, then it becomes subject to division because they have commingled that with marital assets. But so long as their inheritance is kept separate, the spouse is not entitled to anything from that. With respect to the sale of you said if you sell a property that's in a trust. So number one is, what are the powers of the trustee, meaning the person that you can imagine is in charge of governing that container that you've created. What are the powers of the trustee, and what does the trust document say about what happens when an asset is sold? Are the proceeds distributed to the beneficiaries? That's fine. One of the things, 2 points I wanted to make very quickly. One is going to a prior question just very quickly in terms of cost. Sometimes when people come to us, obviously it costs a lot more to create a trust than to do a will, but it's also, in a way, you're avoiding costs down the line, because when you have just a will, you have to probate, and like Brother Humza said, it takes sometimes a year to probate that will. It's also public knowledge, and I know sometimes in our community we want to keep things more private. It's anybody can access your will. So the cost that you pay to an attorney down the line to probate that will and the lengthy process is probably more than just doing things properly with the trust up front, which means things are just proceeding by operation of law, and you don't need court intervention. So that's, I think, one of the most important things. And second is, once you create the trust, it's important to transfer the assets into the trust. Sometimes people create a trust and they don't fund it. So if you don't transfer assets into it, it is useless to you. It's just an empty container. But like I said, the trust document, that governs what happens, whether a property is sold, whether a trustee has the authority to sell a property, etc.
Even if you have an all-exclusive, something exclusive in connection, in regards to your children married, being divorced, I guess once they're together, the trust, my beneficiaries are protected. But in case of a divorce, they cannot touch the assets I have for my children. I am assuming that's how it works also.
Well, the spouse, regardless of whether a trust exists or not, inheritance is separate property. So inheritance is not subject to division during the divorce process.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Yes.
It's still confusing when you says inheritance is not part of it. What do you mean by that? Because if, let's say I own 4 properties, I have 2 kids, and I have them in a trust, is it inheritance? What defines inheritance? What do you mean by that? It's not part of divorce.
Inheritance like a will.
तो ये तो क्लियर होना चाहिए ना, क्योंकि जो irrevocable में है वो तो टच नहीं हो सकता. According to what we are hearing, the things that are put in, we cannot even.
Most estate plans are going to have a will in addition to a trust, and it's kind of like how Brother Humza said, is that we have all kinds of things, and I don't know if you've ever driven past and seen an estate sale, and what that means is the shoes, the clothes, the crockery, everything gets sold and put into a bank account for the estate, which is then divided pursuant to whatever the will says, the distribution schedule is. Your inheritance, meaning whether you're inheriting through a trust, whether you're inheriting through a will, that is separate property and not subject to division.
Most of the questions ask about the trust. So how easy is it to put things in and out of revocable trust? Is it easy? Is it costly?
Usually when we see a list of your assets, usually we focus on the biggest asset you have, which is your real property. That's the one that everyone wants to protect. Alhamdulillah, we're living in New York, an average house is $1 million. So that's the one that is likely to go into the revocable trust. And you can pull it in and out like you like. The other assets that you have, like gold, that's in a lockbox, right? Or maybe 401k or pre-tax dollar investment accounts or post-tax dollar investment accounts, those sorts of things we like to keep outside of a trust. You should have access to it because you don't want to lock that up. So usually what I say is if people say, hey, I have a 401k, I have this HSA account, I have this post-investment account with Morgan Stanley, I say to them, perhaps you should add your children as beneficiaries. So after you pass away, it goes to them automatically, but you don't want to put it into the trust. You don't want to lock it up. The reason, and forget it's about revocable, irrevocable, let's just focus on irrevocable for a second, because we're still thinking about you and the life you have, inshallah, ahead of you. We want to make sure you have access to your assets. When someone has come to us and said, hey, I sold a company, I've got $4 million of cash, and I probably just need $500,000 of it to survive, right? Then I say, okay, $3.5 million should go into the trust bank account because you don't need it, you'd like to protect it, and the $500,000 that you need to survive for the remainder of your life should stay in a bank account you can access. That's how
So
we-
I can say it's not easy to remove things. It's a whole lot of process.
Yeah, so that's why you have to be very careful. Revocable, it's a lot simpler.
The question she's saying is that how possible is it to remove the home from the revocable, put it back, and what would be the additional cost of it?
Yeah, revocable.
Yeah.
If you put a home into it, you do a deed transfer. So
Yeah.
you do the legal work to create the trust and you do the deed transfer. If you want to pull it back, you again do a deed transfer and do a deed transfer back to you. So there's a deed transfer on both sides and there's recording fees for Suffolk County on both sides of this transaction.
Is
So
it time consuming?
each deed transfer with the county takes about 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, so
To
it's
complete.
time consuming. One has to know that.
Yeah.
It's time consuming.
Yeah.
Money is another issue. If people are doing this transaction, they know they have to pay. But
Yeah.
time is something we have
Yes,
to do.
time is of the essence. So you really have to think about why on earth you're putting the property into the revocable. That's why I said a really good situation is when you are a young family and you're going to Hajj. That makes the most sense because you're really unsure. Like, Allah na kare, I go there and something happens to me. You want to make sure your children's asset, the property you've left to them, doesn't have to go through probate.
Got it. I have another question about will. So Mufti Sahib, Jazakallah for saying it's an obligation. At this stage, after 50, I just found out last week there's our Islamic obligation to do a will. I never knew that. So thank you for saying it out loud. So when we talk about will, Amina, you said it has to be proper. What happens? Let's say I go home tonight. I'll take care of my business. But I have a son-in-law, a daughter-in-law, and a niece living with me. My daughter away home. I have 4 kids. They might don't want to go to a lawyer. So let's say for argument's sake, if I tell them you can create a will by sitting in front of 2 people and write it up and sign it and seal it and all. Is it acceptable somewhere? I understand for my assets, I would like to protect it. But for kids, I'm talking about my working kids, but generally everybody is working from 16 above. And he says it's an obligation. So how easy can we make the will to be for kids? Will it be acceptable if we create a will at home and somebody out of the family is there to witness?
There's a lot of formalities in New York in particular with wills because the potential for fraud is so high. And the problem is that the only person that can confirm whether or not they actually signed that will is no longer there to ask. And so New York has, when we do executions, will executions in the office, I actually have people come and they sit around the table and for 10 minutes we just make small talk. And the reason we do that is because, God forbid, down the line there's a challenge of the will, we're able to say that that person was of sound mind, this is what we talked about, and the witnesses can actually testify about that. There's no requirement that the will should be done by an attorney, but it really is quite a risk to not do it properly because if it's not done properly, you're not going to know until it's too late because you can't redo it at that point. Sure.
Sorry. I just want to add a point to that. So I worked in the Supreme Court, I've worked in the Appellate Court, and one of the biggest cases that come through that is probate and people when they say that this will that this individual is trying to bring isn't real. This isn't the last will. I have another will. We sat at home once and Mom said to me that I'm getting everything. We did it just like this, the way you just described. We have a handwritten will and it's all fake probably. Or it's probably done under duress when someone's very old. But that's what creates those litigation matters. Because someone says, no. At the end of their life, Mom said, I'm going to get this whole house. And that's when those siblings start fighting. And I've seen this in court. They fight, siblings, they fight each other for almost 2 years. They spend $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 on legal fees over this one house. So
Just one more question on
Yeah,
that, the same subject. Let's say I send my daughter to you. She's like in her 30s, and she's not married. And she makes a will. How easy is it to change it? Can she change it like in 5 years? She has more assets and she wants to define who she wants to give. Is it possible to change the will, the same will, or it's a new will that she has to make?
We always recommend that everybody revisit their estate plan. So when you're younger, you should revisit at least every 5 to 7 years. As you get older, you should revisit frequently. In New York, the way that you amend a will is that you essentially will create a new will and say that you are revoking any prior will that you did. It's very easy because you're just drafting a new document at that point.
Thank you so much. Just one question for
Sister,
guidance.
can we just have one last question because we're getting a little late for dinner. So if that's, you can consult them, and I'm pretty sure they'd be happy to meet with you. We have a brother here who had a question, and we'll make this the last question, and they'll share their contact information, and you guys can visit them and really pick their brains.
Thank you, Brother Sami. This question is for you. I wanted to understand more the risk-sharing aspect of Islamic financing for homes, especially, let's say, if I have an Islamic Musharaka contract, if I want to sell the house and I don't have the full equity yet, what does that look like? What if it goes on, if it's going to be a loss compared to the purchase of the house, etc. So I want to understand that and juxtapose that with, like, how does that differ from a conventional bank?
Sure. Your first question is, if you are purchasing a property, you are already putting some type of a down payment. The minimum down payment that we allow is as low as 3%. So you're starting with an equity. And if you decide to sell your property, you have that equity already that you can take it. Also, any appreciated value, that's also yours to keep. So that's that. And in terms of the other question is how our program is different than a bank. In short, the agreement that you have with us is through an LLC, and there is no lending and borrowing agreement with you. So conventional bank will create a promissory note with you, and it's strictly based on lending and borrowing, based on interest. Our agreement with you is based on a musharaka, so it's a co-ownership partnership, completely different. So that's the two aspects of the agreement.
Let me quick example. Let's say we buy a house for $1 million. I have 50% ownership. I paid down half of it. I sell it for $800. Would 100,000 loss go to bank to guidance, and the rest with me? Like, because it's co-ownership, I'm trying to understand that risk sharing as well.
Sure. So this type of a co-ownership, it's asset based, and it's known as sharakat al-milk. Sharakat al-milk is where it's not a joint ventureship. If it was a joint ventureship, then you are going to split the sale and the loss and the profit according to your share. Because it's an asset based, and the intention of that agreement started as one is going to buy out the other co-owner at a certain given time. So the intention was to buy out. So the intention is for you to become 100% owner at one time. So for that, that's shirakatul milk. What it says that if you decide to sell $1 million house for $800,000, it's a decision that you're making to have a $200,000 loss, because you're making that decision to have a loss. It's you, so you're gonna walk away with $300,000. Guidance will still ask that, give us our share, because you made that decision. We did not, because we are not in a joint ventureship.
Thanks. Yeah.
That was an excellent question. With that, I would thank everyone for coming. We have really good dinner prepared downstairs. But before we head to dinner, I would request Mufti Farhan to make a quick dua, and then we'll proceed downstairs.
Before Mufti Farhan goes, I just wanted to introduce our team member. Qazi Arzuni is sitting right among the sisters, so I just wanted to raise your hand. Any one of the sisters, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to her. I believe I also see a sister who is a realtor here, right? So she's here. Anybody who's buying a home, I would love to help our community. Let the wealth stay within the community. I think over here we have a brother who is a realtor. Brother Nasser, raise your hand. Anybody wants to buy a house? Of him, inshallah. All right. Thank you.
اللهم لك الحمد كما أنت أهله وصل على محمد كما أنت أهله وفل بنا ما أنت أهله فإنك أهل التقوى وأهل المغفرة لا إله إلا الله الحليم الكريم سبحان الله رب العرش العظيم والحمد لله رب العالمين نسألك موجبات رحمتك وأدائم مغفرتك والغنيمة من كل بر وسلامة من كل إثم لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته ولا دينا إلا قضيته ولا مريضا إلا شفيته ولا حاجة هي لك رضا إلا قضيتها ويسرتها يا أرحم الراحمين ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين وجعلنا للمتقين إماما رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا وصلى الله على النبي الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه وأمته أجمعين آمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين
Ameen. Jazakallah. I would request all of you to proceed downstairs. You can grab your shoes. It's tiles downstairs. So men proceed from my right-hand side and women from my left-hand side. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Someone left their laptop. iMac. Please, it's here. I think it was on the ladies' side. So if you had a laptop with you, please come upstairs and it's up front. Thank you.